Hey there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga play guide and review. This time we'll be checking out Caesar, which was developed by Golden Sector Design and published by Impressions in time for Christmas 1992. At the very start we can choose our difficulty, and for this I'll be choosing the very easiest difficulty, avoiding us the very most money at the beginning of every single level. And money is very tight, as you shall see. We can also change our name. I'm just going to leave it as Octavian for now. We can also load a game up as well. By clicking OK, we can start a new game, and that will randomly place us on the map of Europe. And in this case, we have landed in Egypt. It's 13 BC, and as yet we don't even have a civilization. This is our first mission, and apparently we are a trainee who's been sent from Rome, and their job is to enhance and thrive and populate an area. You can see North Africa is fairly barren, and it's possibly one of the harder ones to start off from. But if we click back, we can click on the disc, and from here we can load and save a game, and here you can see the load and saves. It's very important to get the right number for your load and your save. This is me playing the game, and on my very first try I managed to get somewhere on my very first city, so I began to record it. This is actually in the southern tip of Greece. If we click on the options, we can see that we are here, and Achaia, or however it's pronounced, perhaps Arcadia, this was in the Sparta region of southern Greece. You can see we are a decurion, and decurion, well, we can drop to a citizen from here if we really mess this up, or we can get promoted to a magistrate. We have to earn an average of 40% rating on all of the rating systems and get a minimum 15% as well, of which we shall see later on. Our personal fortune is 250 denarii, and we have virtually zero imperial favour, so let's increase our salary up to at least 100 denarii, and then we can begin to accrue our wealth, and we'll definitely need more than that. You can see on this option screen, we can see the forum, and all the guys standing around the forum are our advisors. Taking a look at the military advisor, we can see that we only have 5 regulars in the army, and 5 irregulars, and 2 auxiliaries, and we only have 1 army at the moment. Well, we have 2 armies, one of them is waiting, and so we'll be going through making armies and attacking things a little bit later on. And for now I'm just going to increase the wages bill, which is definitely important. We can also check out other guys in the forum, and by clicking on the guy in the white robe we can check out our progress. At this point my average is 26%, and by clicking on these we can actually see a tip, a play tip as to how to improve things, in this case increase buildings and increase quality of life, and that will help us as we play in the game. Clicking on the last guy, he's a slave, and from here we can increase slave welfare, and that increases the number of slaves that we've got, and at the beginning I like to increase that a little bit, and we can also distribute those slaves around our little kingdom. At the beginning of the game you get a small patch of land in which to build your little kingdom. This is our city, and I've placed a forum in the middle of it with a paved road around it. We have a market and also a construction site right next to the forum, along with a number of factories. Some of those factories are actually building stuff, and if they build things that we can sell, that means we get income. And at the moment we've just got one road that's protected by this garrison guardhouse. You can see a guard walking up, and if there are any enemy floating around, that guard shall hopefully destroy them before they destroy any of our buildings. Buildings in this game are definitely important, and at this stage you can see that this is a Sim City type game. It's an overhead plotter strategy where we can put down buildings and then link those up using roads and also water systems as well, and certain systems will be dependent on each other. You can see by clicking on the arrow, we can also click on an overhead view, which is a plan view of our location. This is southern Greece, and we've managed to link to the tip of it, and that will increase our trade routes. Unfortunately, building huge Roman roads are a huge expense to us. We've got 5,000 denarii, but that won't last 5 minutes if we spend it on Roman roads. So at the moment, we are moderately accruing extra trade by having that one trade route available to us, and hopefully that will open up a port as well. You can see it's a fairly small forum at this point, but you have to build a forum at the beginning of the game, and you can see the houses nearby are fairly tall, and forums definitely increase the prices of land values around them. Let's check out a further save, and this is further along in the same one. You can see I've expanded my town just a little bit, and the businesses to the south are actually booming with stock. And you can see, well, sometimes we can have roads degraded. So if you want to build an extra road, you have to build a standard road and then a paved road on top of it, and that will just give your place a little bit more prestige. You can see I've built a few things, including a hospital and a school, and a lot more guards are now guarding the place thanks to 4 or 5 different guard towers and guard structures that we've placed around. And you can see we've spread out in the north. We've managed to buy a few more factories, and look at the buildings. They really are rich around here. They've got their own baths, and they've got their own stadium and their own workshop as well. But look at that, the barbarians have been hammering around the outskirts of our city and knocked down our city wall. What can we do about that? Well, send a guy in there. The guys are basically to walk around on their own, and you can't really guide them anywhere. But if you build a road, they will walk on the road, and sometimes you can guide those towards the enemy. But you can see the roads have been degraded, and part of the reason for that is because we haven't allocated enough money to our slaves, and slaves maintain the roads as well as many other things. And so if we increase the money going to our slaves, that should hopefully help to maintain those roads. And as we get through into AD, the time will now tick up, the years will now tick up, and you can see that we are renovating the area by destroying some buildings and laying down a new road, and sometimes that can improve quality of life. Bottom of the screen we have a number of icons, and the very end one we can select a number of utilities. That's an oracle, and an oracle again is somewhere like a fortune teller, and people can go there to get advice, and it's the early Wikipedia. So we can place an oracle anywhere, and then people can look up stuff and ask for advice. So let's just repair these walls to stop that barbarian getting through, and the walls, the city walls at this point are fairly linear and they're fairly flimsy, and they can get knocked down pretty easily. We'll move on to how to construct a city from scratch a little bit later on when we move on, but you can see the barbarian is now rampaging through our city. Sometimes the barbarians just get rid of one building, and then it's just a matter of selecting the spade and clearing that area again, and then perhaps building the exact same building back again. There are also some more guys, and you can see this guy tells us all of our history. And from this one, we can change the economy, and the standard tax rate is 5% in Rome. Let's increase that to 7%, and the unemployment rate is only 10%, which is terrific. Then you can see we are taxing the citizens, of which there aren't that many, and the industry will get lots of tax from that. You can see apart from 2 areas where we spent a load of fortune on Roman roads, the rest we're only just making a profit, and that's fine at this stage. Clicking on the slave, of course, the upkeep of roads and road maintenance is a priority, and you'll have to increase the numbers beyond it. The numbers that it says are appropriate, the ones in brackets, so if we double that, we It says 25, let's put 50 in there, let's double those values, and then we get the roads maintained. As we build our cities, some citizens will start walking around, and you can see a trader with his hands full, and those guys cart things around and we can sell them. And there's an old guy as well, I think he's a manufacturer, and he will go around between buildings and manufacture stuff. And the basic amenities have to be built as well, including a public lavatory and public water as well. And so let's build things. You can see the numbers are actually a school, and we can help to educate the people, and sometimes that can also increase the land values. You can see the buildings jumping up now thanks to that school. Also, with law and order, we can also build a police station, and now that we've got law and order right next to the forum, which is right next to a water source and a bathing source and the forum, the buildings are really getting there. Jump into the external view a bit later on, you can see that we have built the roads, and the towns nearby will start to flourish now thanks to the community that we've got going on, and we're now patrolling that with 3 sets of guards, or at least 1, and that should hopefully intercept. But unless they're actually moving, they won't intercept the barbarians, of which one has walked straight into our camp. You can see the barbarians when they walk around the perimeter of the city, so let's just set one of our legions off, and then hopefully he can protect us. The barbarians crash through the walls and then crash through the buildings, and that's pretty expensive. So at this stage, let's just direct a few of our legions around the map, and that means that they will intercept any barbarians. Let's also check out the wages bill, and we can check out the cohort legions from here, which we have 3 at the moment. You can see that we have 16 irregulars, 7 irregulars, and the more that they fight, the harder that they will become, and by increasing the wages bill, we'll get more conscripts into the army. So let's hike the wages bill up so that wages are fortune, so that we get plenty of new recruits. You can see our money has also gone up thanks to joining up all these places, and it won't be long before this southern tip of Greece is ours, and at that point we'll get awarded an upgrade and a new vicinity to rule. At this moment we're just checking out the barbarians, and the rocks you can see on the landscape are actually hills, and it takes the barbarians a long time to get through hills. Sometimes they are blocked by them completely. So let's just ignore those barbarians and concentrate back on the main part of the game, which is the city. Again, the robed guy tells us our stats, and our empire is at 95%. Thanks to those roads, we've definitely built the empire up to the top. And prosperity 40%, thanks to the number of buildings that we've created that have people in there, the citizens, and it increased the slums, it says, to increase that value. The culture, well, as long as you build all the special items like the forum and the oracle, then you'll get all of that. And the peace, unfortunately, is because we keep allowing barbarians into the city. Those barbarians are smashing our reputation. That's one of the hardest and the longest reputations to build up in the game, and it's sometimes the longest and the hardest to complete. You can see we're being attacked by the Carthaginians, and the Carthaginians have 1 cohort in there, we have 9, or whatever. That means that we've destroyed them, and we get some options as well how to fight the battle, as we shall see. And Carthaginians are one of the easiest to fight in this game, and you'll definitely be fighting harder enemies a little bit later on. Sometimes we can sweeten the deal by adding new buildings, but of course we'll need to watch out because we can soon spend that money. But every time it clicks up a new date in the corner, that means that we get some more taxes. And Achaia and maybe Arcadia, maybe that's supposed to be, but we have some more taxes. We're now up to 8 grand in the bank. So let's build some more roads, hopefully, towards this oracle, and maybe the buildings that are surrounded by roads will go up in value. It's a difficult predicament, and sometimes you can place churches between them, are police stations, in this case a bathing area, and that means that as long as they're near a water source, it means the people can start bathing, and that means they can move out of the slums. In this game, buildings build quick, and as long as you build the infrastructure, you can have buildings popping up all over the place. But if they are next to slums like this, mud huts, and you can see the wooden buildings, then unfortunately they will not grow. So it's best to have a few buildings next to a huge monument rather than a load of buildings next to a swimming pool, otherwise it will turn into a cesspit. It's always wise to check out the area, and if you hear any screaming going on, that means that the barbarians are going to attack. And all that we need to do is to prevent the barbarians from attacking at this point. We've definitely gone over the minimum requirements that it said that we needed to qualify for the next level. It's just that we'll definitely need to prevent some further damage. The best way to do that is to go to the external view and to make sure our legions stop all of the barbarians before they get into the city. This is my first ever play of the game, and I never actually got to play this back in the day. This is my first ever play of the first ever level. You can see the businesses are booming now, and the road network is fine. There are hardly any barbarians attacking as well at this point. We've surrounded our base with a load of walls and a load of castles, not that that does much, but now we only need to increase the peace. Having done that, what will happen is eventually we will get a merit from the Emperor, and then we will be upgraded. It's now 53 AD, and we're somewhere else completely. And after every mission it will tell us where we are, but loading up from this save we can find out we are now a magistrate in Germania, and clicking on that we can see the map. We are now in Germania, having completed Greece, or at least the low end tip of it. So we now have 1660 cash in the bank, which means we are richer. We've got 11% imperial favour, and we require some more stats to get through this level. So we'll be having a whistle-stop tour through Germania. We're not going to play it much, but I'll show you how I started this thing. You can see I'm increasing the wages bill. That increases the conscripts and gets us a bigger army, which means that we can start to prevent the barbarians from the goal. It means that we can also run out of money, so let's increase the tax again to 7%, increase the money going to the slaves so that they can maintain the roads, and maintaining buildings is expensive. You really don't want the buildings breaking down, because that really is expensive, so it's far cheaper to build and click on the slaves. By clicking on the chart, we can see the area map. We can see that there's a huge river there, and we'll definitely make use of that, and there's also a lake. And so at the start of the game, all we need to do is to build the infrastructure. That means the water supply. By clicking on the icons, we can then build a dam and a water source, and then a few pipes. And then we can also build a reservoir as well, or we can build something at the end of the pipe, like a bathhouse. So you can see various icons at the bottom of the screen, and there are the roads, the water supplies, and that's a big reservoir. We'll definitely need that, and that means that the water will flow into that, and it will create a water fountain in the centre of town, and fountains are definitely something which improve the environment. And you can see two main icons, the first of which controls the basics, and the basics include the forum, and we'll go through the forums a bit later on. Let's just build a basic forum for now, which becomes the centre of our city. And let's build a road all around that forum, which helps access to it, because that's the central hub. And the F symbol on the corner is the icon that you click on to reach the forum, where we get to see our forum advisors. So 56 AD, we built a school, and we built, it looks like, to the north, we built a market, and to the south, a workshop. You can see the hut icon is there, that's the third one along, and that helps us to build new houses. At the moment I'm building some more guards. You can see a barbarian there. So what can we do? Well, first of all, let's stop him from getting to our important forum, because if he wanders up there, he'll destroy it. And second of all, let's build a road to that, and you won't get anybody pouring out of the guard place unless you have enough guards. And sometimes you can put slaves in there as well, and slaves can help you guard the city. And so we're still waiting for that at the moment, and we're watching this guy to see what he destroys. In this case it looks like he's destroyed everything, so I had to build everything back again, and I built a smaller forum because I couldn't afford it. You can see my cash is running out, and sometimes at the very start of the game you can get barbarian attacks, which means it's difficult to get going, and you have to come up with an economy from scratch from a bare piece of land. And so all you can do is to put a bit of water there, and those reservoirs will reach a huge distance around them, and it means that all these local businesses that I've planted, which again we'll go into a bit later on, they will prosper from that water. And once we have the businesses, we can lay down some houses because they have a place of work. Once we have the houses, we can then drop down schools and also hospitals as well. And also a few oracles. The game moves relatively slowly unless we're being attacked by people, and that's great. It means we can take our time with this, and games can last maybe an hour or two, depending on how successful you are, and obviously a bit later on it gets harder and harder. Fast forwarding, we're still in Germania, we've built the guard towers, we're building the land around the place, but unfortunately I've made a mistake, and because I've built the marketplace and the workshop too far away from the forum, it actually means that everybody's unemployed, and I can't actually build any more houses. They just get destroyed and people are leaving my city. So even though I'm trying to put money into slaves, it can happen that if you put the buildings down in their own place, you don't place them next to the forum, sometimes you can find yourself with people walking out. You can see 100% unemployment there, and my deficits are in the red, even though I have got workshops. Because we didn't employ the right thing next to the forum, everybody's unemployed, which means I had to start this level from the beginning all over again. Good planning and brave decisions. You've been promoted. Rome has ordered that you've been promoted to the rank of Prefectus in the province of West Britannia. Take the promotion, or, well, we can refuse the promotion for 10 or 25 years, but let's not do that. Otherwise we'll be an old man. Let's just move on to West Britannia. That means we've inherited the West Country. And unfortunately I can't do a West Country accent, my dears. We can't do the West Country. But what we can do is check it out, and we can check out the land values, which aren't worth 0 at the moment because we haven't built anything. And now that we're in the West Country, let's move through this from scratch. Let's build our town from scratch, and let's view this for the rest of this play guide. And this is again just a guide to how to play the game. This is not a definitive description, but from this hopefully I can show you how to start it. You can see that we've got a stream there, and that's a natural barrier, and rivers and streams protect us against the barbarians. So what I'm actually going to do is to be ultra clever, and because this is all the way over to the west of the map, the barbarians can't get over the river unless we build a bridge over it. So what we're going to do is to build the forum here instead. Speeding up that footage, we can lay down the water supply, of which I like to lay down a nice block pattern. And we'll be able to see on the statistics the water distribution, and that shows that all of that area that we've just plotted off has now got water. That means that we can build our buildings anywhere in this area. So the first building is the forum. Let's click on the F at the end. That builds as a forum. And you can see they start pretty cheaply and going to the expensive ones. The more expensive, the better. But at this stage in the game, you're probably better off going for one of the medium ones. And that increases prosperity if you have a medium-sized forum. And let's not fall into the same trap. Let's try to build a workshop right next to the forum this time, so we don't have any 100% unemployment going on. And also we'll need to build a market as well. Let's place a few roads down, which is very much like SimCity, and it can sometimes be annoying if the mouse slips. You'll build a road right up the edge of the screen. So that's the forum and the road around it. And then the market, let's build that just off to the east of the forum, and that should hopefully mean that that's the core of our buildings going on. And unfortunately we don't have too much space for us to build, but once we've got a decent economy, it means we can spread out. And unfortunately, if the barbarians get into the region, it means that we lose our security value. And that's why it was on 2% before, because if they walk into the region, you still lose that value. So even though we are protected, we'll still have to employ some good tactics. So at the moment I'm building some factories, and the factories is the pickaxe at this point, and I'm choosing to build the factories. It tells you what they are, and then it gives you the icon. So you can see I built 2 tin factories there by mistake, so let's just destroy one. And by clicking on the spade, we can destroy it and clean it up as well. So we've got glass, tin, pottery. And of course, the amenities are dependent on the area. So if you're in North Africa, then definitely build ivory factories. And if you're in maybe Italy or France, definitely build wine factories. But because we're in West Britannia, it's a gamble as to what we build, and according to the manual, you're supposed to read the manual to find out what every region is good at producing. That definitely wasn't necessarily on the PC version, because that had an extra guy in the forum. You can see we've placed down a bathhouse, and that won't get any water unless we have a reservoir there, or unless we connect that. And the bathhouse is definitely the most important thing before we lay down any communities, because the community needs somewhere to bathe and also somewhere to take a public lavatory dump as well. Because in this day and age, unless you were an elite, you didn't have a huge great sewer system and underfloor heating and all the rest of it. You had to basically take a dump in the wilderness, and if you were higher up than serf, you could go into a public lavatory. So let's lay down a few buildings. We've laid down a school and a hospital, and we'll be able to tell straight away if those buildings stay around. If the place is prosperous and if those buildings disappear, it means we've got 100% unemployment again. We'll have to start it again from scratch. But no, the guy's working. So there are a couple of huts, and the very basics are there as far as factories. And we've got a guy working there distributing those things. So hopefully, we don't know at this point whether those factories are actually going to do anything. And in the sequel, well, the update was released on the PC. That was known as Caesar, I think, and that was converted back to the Amiga as Caesar Deluxe. Let's lay down a copper factory. So if you play Caesar Deluxe, what that has got an extra guy in the forum, and that guy is basically a business economy guy. And you can click on him and he will tell you what factories need produce, what they're building, and what you need to build. That takes 99.9% of the mystery out of this game, and looking at the manual, things like that. But the extra guy is not here on this version. You can see we're still Perfectus, we're still in Western Britannia, which is where we're going to be. We used to be a magistrate, and we're going to be a legate. If we get promoted, we'll need to get an average ranking of 50% on all of those columns that we saw, and right now we're only 8%. Ironically, the peace value is quite good at the moment, even though we're really not building up the army at this point. can see we've got one army, one regular in there, so let's build that up to 55 denarii and bump up the conscription as well. I think anything above 20%, the conscription, well, some of the citizens don't like too much conscription, and anything lower than 17% and you're really not getting enough guys in. So let's bump up the slave value as well at this point, which is critical for later on. You can see despite our best efforts, the houses aren't really building up, and still tents. Tents are the lowest value that you can ever get in a city. Tents are basically lower than slums, and at least in a slum you've got somewhere to hang out, but in a tent it's only temporary accommodation. You've got lots of workers going on, so as long as these buildings start producing something, then eventually they should require some workers. Let's lay down a police station. We're going to need some law and order as well. So this guard hut, we're going to place that right at the edge, and maybe another one right at the end as well, or maybe two of those, and they should hopefully, if we plan a road around and over the river, we can then intercept barbarians that are attacking us. So let's link that up, fast forward just a little bit and see how we got on with that. And it's very depressing still to see those tents hanging around, and sometimes the land values depend on not only local amenities but also extra things like the law and order. We haven't got any police stations around here. We've just built a church and we've just built an oracle as well. And if you build a church, if you take up 1 square with that, then sometimes the church will increase in size. I laid down 2 squares and that automatically built the church up to 2 squares in size. But if you lay down 4 squares, sometimes that creates a huge church. And sometimes if you put houses in a block pattern as well, that can increase the very top quality houses. If you only lay them in a line, then I think the houses can only go up to a huge block of flats. And then after the tenant buildings, these huge blocks of flats, which yes, were there in Rome all those years ago, they did have high-rise tenement buildings back then, but I think that's as high as you can go unless it occupies 4 blocks. So you can see what an impact the Oracle has had, but I'm struggling at this point going for the defensive measures because I'm struggling for land. And land, well, at this point of the game isn't too bad. You can see we've still got 6 grand in the bank, but later on, or at the hardest difficulty levels, then the barbarians can attack very quickly, and so you'll really have to get your skates on and build things very, very quickly. We can build sports stadiums and amphitheatres as well as full coliseums. Sometimes a full coliseum can be very expensive. You see, a barbarian is waiting to get us, but he can't get us unless we build a bridge to him. And it's not unknown to have maybe 8 different barbarians walking around in the wilderness if they can't get into the city. And that's fine, because as soon as you build a bridge and send out some guards, they will then be destroyed. And unfortunately it means, well, if you look at the statistics, it means that our guarding quality is at bare minimum. So let's check out our regulars. We've got 12 already by bumping up the wages bill to 55 denarii, and I've had that all the way up to 150 denarii and maybe 4 or 5 different armies before now. Checking out the slaves, I always put plenty in there, maybe 25 or 30 denarii. And again, really double up on what it recommends. So I'm putting 50 in everything, so the army gets maintained, the roads, the buildings, and the fire prevention as well. And fire is important. If that destroys a building and you haven't put enough into fire prevention, then that's money lost. Barbarians sighted. And from where we are at the moment, you can see this is the big map, and we're more or less in the Bath area of Britain. And you can see barbarians being stopped by the woodlands and by some mountains. So until we start building our roads all over the place, we can stop those barbarians. You can see the cash falling off the cliff as we start to build roads, and I'm being careful not to build over the mountains, otherwise that barbarian will get us. Our city will increase in stature much more quickly if we can link that to a nearby town. So that's what we've done, and the town will grow into a bigger town. And at this stage, you might look at the city walls and think we should build one of them, but if we click on the sword, that will actually build a garrison building, and that's where, basically, that's how you build a new army. And so any excessive troops from the city will go into the garrison building automatically, and from there you can send out that new army. So that means I think you can have a maximum of 9 legions in every army, and once that reaches 9, then you'll just have to plant down a new garrison building, and that creates a new army. You can see we're also building a defensive wall there as well. We've spent a fortune and we're on 5% tax, so, well, it's a good idea to increase that to at least 7 at the beginning of every game. Unemployment 0, which is a magical number. We definitely want 0 unemployment in the game, because that increases prosperity. And it's those 4 major things that we'll have to look out for. If we build roads all over the place, that means that the end column is completed in a flash, and that's the easiest one to build up. And if you build all of the fancy buildings that you can see listed on this panel, all of them in the city, then eventually that will increase the prosperity column. And as far as the economy column, you'll have to just place loads of citizens all over the place, and eventually that column will go up. And the rest is about security. And you can see I'm struggling for space at the moment. I think as long as 2 out of the 4 sides of any building are surrounded by roads, then that building will activate. So I'm trying, that's actually 1 side of the 4, I'm trying to activate that building one, and I'm not sure that that is activated because I haven't got 2 out of the 4 sides. So there are a few quirks, and I'm being defended pretty nicely at the moment. I'm just letting those barbarians pile up on the outside, build up the guards on the inside. Once I've got maybe 5 or 6 guards walking around, I'll then build the bridge over and get rid of those barbarians. This game was released by Impressions, and Impressions were big on the strategy games in the mid-90s when everybody else was doing platforms and races. And Impressions had a huge rake of games out at the time, and one of their games was Lords of the Realm, and that was kind of a Defender of the Crown game. And they also had Merchant Colony out as well, and other games in that fold. We also had Detroit and Paladin 2, and they also created Cohort as well, Cohort 2, and we won't be reviewing Cohort or Cohort 2 in this series of 4 or 5 play guide games, but that's special in this one because if you have Cohort 2, when we get to the battles of it later on, you have that as a bolt-on game that will actually cut to the Cohort 2 game, and you can play the battles in Cohort 2. That means you have a lot more control of the battles in this game, and without that the battles are trivial and they are highly annoying because every 5 seconds later on you're being attacked when all you want to do is concentrate on the city. But if you have Cohort 2, that means you can guide your troops in battle. To be honest, if you have more troops than the enemy, it's easier to do it the automatic way like I'm doing at the moment. And as soon as an enemy collides with the barbarian, if it's moving that is, they will be attacked, and they attack each other. Whichever one has the biggest force will succeed. And we've just laid down a huge Colosseum and a vain, huge, hopeless attempt to try to get the land values up. You can see, well, the earth shakes sometimes when buildings collapse, and barbarians can collapse buildings as well as fires and things like that. And I'm not sure that there are any natural disasters like earthquakes, but definitely fires can break out, pretty similar to Sim City. And you can see, yes, the buildings have increased in stature around those key objects, and we're down to 3.6 in the bank. And when you've only got 3,600, it's a gamble of what you spend your money on. You can't really afford to build much at this stage, so what I'm doing is trying to build up the economy the slow way, and that should hopefully mean I can explore the game by the time we get to 7,000 or 8,000 is the time to put everything into the army. And we're still putting everything into the army. That will slowly build up. There's no need to increase the wages bill at this stage, and until there is at least maybe 30 guys in the army, but having a higher wages bill brings more guys in. You can see on the slave market, that's fine, so it's always a good idea to check the stats occasionally to see how well we're getting on. And you can see the southern part of, well, Wales and the southern tip of the UK. We haven't linked up Penzance yet, unfortunately, and so let's check out the stats. As far as culture, we've got enough of it because we've built all those different buildings, every single one of them. Prosperity, there's virtually nothing except for us living in slums. And the Empire, because we've linked up one of the 4 different towns in every single map, we've got 25%. And so as long as you link up those 4 towns, you get the 100%, if you can afford it. You can see a landmark has appeared, and sometimes landmarks appear in the game if you have plazas and you have special things dotted around. Then you can get a key landmark, and that increases happiness and values, and that appears at complete random. You can't build those, and sometimes if you move your mouse pointer over it, it disappears just like that. But I love those extra features. I love it when churches turn into big cathedrals. I love it when small buildings turn into huge farms and huge estates. And it's great to see those high levels in the game. Looking at our funds, you can see the funds have been going down as the population has been slowly rising. You can see we've got more peace going on because we've got some guards, and the empire is slowly being built up. But sometimes the most difficult thing is to build buildings, because then you have to build sanitation, you have to build roads, you have to build schools, and oracles, and medicine, and education, and all the rest of it just for a few houses. So it's a huge infrastructure, and police stations as well. It's a huge infrastructure just for a few houses in the game. So I'm trying a different tactic. Let's put down a church and an oracle. That church is already grown, and a police station as well. And sometimes you might struggle to get things connected, but you can always delete things and destroy things pretty easily in the game. Let's put down another fountain, which I call a reservoir, and so let's connect the place up with a few roads, and hopefully that's a bijou residence now. You don't have to lay down everything all over the place, and you don't have to go to the trouble of having libraries and schools around everywhere, as long as the basic amenities are there. So let's give them a basic bathing area, and it's terrific to see the bathing areas turning into a huge one, which is a huge area. And those are the great parts of the game. And if you like games that are quite slow, look at that church now, it's terrific. If you like games that are quite slow and plodding and reasonable, and often you can reload from a save point as well, then this kind of plodding strategy game might be for you. And I haven't played this before. This is a live play of me playing the game, trying to work it out, and letting the barbarians basically do their own thing while I do something else. You can see the barbarians are even chopping down trees for us and laying over mountains, and unfortunately they can't fall into a swamp and die, but they can clear a way towards our city. Our perimeter is rather guarded, and you can see the enemies stuck on the beach behind some mountains, and that will stay like that forever unless you build a road around there and destroy the mountains. And sometimes what I like to do is to block the enemy out with lots of walls. But in order to stop the enemy, you have to force the legions to move, and then when they make contact, we'll get this screen. And we're being attacked by the Picts at the moment. They have 3 legions to our 9, or I think it said, fully trained cohorts, so that means that we win the battle. And that means that our army stops dead, and it means it cannot fight another battle. And it stays like that forever until you force it to move again. So by clicking on the 2-way arrows, it means that we can move that between 2 points. And so let's set our army off again. That's very annoying to have to do that after every single battle. And let's increase our wages up again. Let's try to get some elite forces in the game. We've already created 1 unit, and we can create another one as well. So now that we have lots of money pouring in, hopefully we can start to build up their army. And I like to have maybe 3 garrison buildings, or maybe 2 in the main city. And like I say, sometimes if you can wall in the enemy, then they won't attack us for the rest of the game. But you'll always get 4 or 5 different points on the map where the enemy will attack, maybe even 6 points. And sometimes building a wall on the beaches doesn't always help. You can see some terrific buildings there already. Our water distribution is mostly covering everything, and the administration is mostly covering everything as well. The police stations are the administration, and those also collect taxes from the businesses and the homes. So if you don't build all those police stations everywhere, then you won't get taxes. If you don't get taxes, then your money won't go up. You can see we're around 1900 dinar at the moment, and I think it takes 10,000 dinar to make 1 talent, so basically we're really struggling on money at the moment. But let's put in those administration buildings and then we can tax those citizens. This game was released by Impressions, and the main coder of this game was Simon Bradbury, and he began on the Amiga with perhaps the world's worst Amiga game in the world. That was Kenny Dalglish's Soccer Match, that came out in 1989, and that has a 1.7 out of 10 on the Lemon database. That's 17%. And he went on to Ancient Games, which I took a look at and we won't be playing. That's a very much Summer Games type of game, and based on the ancient Greek Olympics. So you have things like running and swimming, and I think even cliff diving in that game, and ancient things like that. But unless you play that on an Amiga 500, that runs ridiculously quickly. And to be honest, running my joystick around in circles and waggling the joystick at 1,000 miles per hour to run is not something I want to do with my classic zip stick anymore. So I chose mice games instead. So that's not brilliant, but it's still an ancient game, and it still fits into this category that we're kind of reviewing at the moment. And so Simon Bradbury, he also created Merchant Colony, which was released through Impressions, and I think that's like a medieval game where we create colonies in Europe. I think it's before we discovered America, and they also expanded that into the incredible Lords of the Realm, which also got an AGA version as well, in 1994, and Simon Bradbury helped with that game as well. And I haven't checked that game out, but it doesn't fit in with this genre of the Romans. And so those were the Middle Ages games, and those were again released by Impressions. And the music for this game was created by Chris Bamford, and he's better known as a game designer and even a graphics designer and a coder who didn't do that much music, but Chris Bamford also worked on several impression strategy games, including Detroit and the AGA version, and Paladin 2, and also High Seas Trader as well. On the Amiga, it's still a guessing game as to which one of these industries is the best one, and so far we haven't really got much trading. And the manual, it says that you're better off to not build more than one of each type of business, because they will compete against each other and the value of each item they produce will go down. So if you produce glassware, the value of that glass will go down. In my experience though, I do the opposite. If somebody's building lots of things, I tend to concentrate on that so that we can corner the market in it. And some of these are dependent on others. So tin and copper make bronze, and from bronze you can make other things. And you can see tin, the T, we've managed to get 1 tin built, maybe that's 1 ton of tin. And also to create wine, well, you'll have to create glass before you can make wine, and then you'll have to make a winery. And so some things are dependent on others in the game, and well, I'm not quite sure what's dependent on what, but usually pottery is one of the first things I build, because after you've got the pots, you can put stuff in it, and once you've got the pots, that includes basic amenities as well. So hopefully our expenditure is going down, and look at that, our industry is slowly going up. Population's terrific, and I think you have, well, maybe you need over 1,000 population to complete these early levels, and that's not too bad because we're on 800 already, and they're fairly happy as well. But you can see still some progress to go as far as basic industry, and we're still struggling on that, even though we've got 17 regular legions in the army, and that's fantastic because it means that we can defeat most of the enemy now. We've got all these prime cohorts into position. You'll notice that they're also labelled as well, Eagle, Snake as well, and those are legitimate Roman names for cohorts, Eagle, Snake and Rabbit. Check out the slaves again. There aren't that many in the army, but I like to keep that around 25, 26, otherwise you're overpaying the slaves. And at this point we haven't got much in the bank, and that's critical. And you might notice that we chose the very easiest level, that gives us the very most amount in the bank at the beginning of each level. And if you choose the deluxe version, that unfortunately gives us less money on the easiest level, and it gets rid of the very easiest level. So on the deluxe version it's slightly harder, and I usually run out of money very, very quickly in the game. So you need lots of money, and when your factories are doing nothing, you really need to build those up ASAP. In fact, factories are one of the biggest earners in the game, so I'm still clutching at those straws to see what combination of factories that we need. We've got glass, tin, copper with the C, so we need wine, ivory, wheat or spices. Sometimes wheat is a good one to start with as well, because that's a nice basic item. And you can see that has a different building to the tin mine. And so, well, you can see that we probably built that one already, so I'm just destroying that. And so let's again look, well, maybe this one. We've got wheat already, so maybe glassware is where we need to go. It's a guessing game at the moment. And like I said before, the deluxe version has a guide there that tells you exactly what you need to build. And with him there, well, it's really no point playing the game because it tells you how to build the city more or less. So even though you can play the deluxe version, I prefer this one. You can see my money is rolling into the bank. Unfortunately, I've managed to save up a huge fortune, but I'm having to spend it all. And you can withdraw your salary and donate money to the city. So let's give the city maybe 1,000 of my hard-earned cash that I saved up by overtaxing everybody else. Let's give them 1,000 quid of my money, and that should mean, hopefully, that we have enough to survive. We've got 1993, one of my favourite years. So we skimped. If we hadn't gone for the easiest mode, we'd have been broke, and that means we'd have to start the level again. I don't like doing that. I don't like reloading saves, but I've had to do that already when Germany collapsed. So here it is. Here's the enemies. And at this point we can't invest in anything. All we can do is sit around and hope that our businesses pull through. At this stage it's the Picts, and the icons to the far left denote the strategy that we can use, and we can either basically stand there, stand up, defend ourselves, or run away. And of course the running away option is the least great option, because that means your army does nothing, at least weaken the army. And against some tribes it's best to stand and fight, against some it's best to attack them head on, definitely the Carthaginians, and for the strong ones later on sometimes it's best to knuckle down and go into a defensive formation. We can't do anything at the moment, and that can be frustrating because we haven't got the cash, and without cash we can't expand, we can't get the more income from the more prosperity. So it's catch-22. What have we got going on? Well, copper is there. That's amazing, but not amazing at the same time. The houses are slums and they're falling to pieces, so that's ridiculous at the same time. And so that's a complete washout, and this is definitely a guide to how not to play this game. But that's fine, at least you know how to deal with my mistakes. Unlike the game Hannibal, which was a very simple game which came on 4 discs, this is a quite complex game which came on 1 disc, so even though there is some loading involved, it's not that big, and it only takes up 1 disc, which is terrific. I've passed 1,000 citizens, which should be good for the stats, and that's perhaps the easiest way to pile lots of citizens all over the map. You can see that my expenditure is slowly going down. We might even be in profit next year. And you can see slowly the unemployment is only 10%, and the taxes from the industry, which were on 500 before, are only just getting there. So the overall loss is 11 denarii. So we're getting there. The structure of the economy is important, and unlike the settlers, it's not all about building up swords and shields. As long as money is pouring in to our war department, there isn't much to do. I think the war aspect of this game is pretty much wasted, because every time you bump into an enemy, you get the chance to dispatch them with one of only 5 moves, and the automatic killing spree, choosing any one of those 5 moves, is more annoying because all you want to do most of the time is concentrate yourself on the city. But this game did grip me, and it did give me some addiction for a number of weeks, and so, again, if you like SimCity, if you like those types of games, maybe even Populous as well, and these kind of construction strategy games, then definitely check this one out. This is one that I completely missed back in the day. Look at all those pots outside the industry. Yippee, we're getting something. We're getting tons of tin, we're getting tons of glass, and the wheat is pouring in as well. We've got some spices and 2 copper. So once the industry takes off, it takes off big time. And you can see houses really don't like to be parked next to factories. At this stage I'm just getting rid of this factory because it doesn't seem to be doing anything, and if we place some tin here, hopefully we can make the most of the tin boom that we're going through at the moment. And we need tin cans if we're going to put stuff in there, and tin is useful for all kinds of things in the ancient world. You can see that makes an impact already. But it would be wise to destroy the slums at this point, get rid of all those buildings and do a proper job, build a separate forum somewhere else, maybe build a bridge over that river, and start up a new colony somewhere else. Building again around the factories. Who wants to live near a factory? You know, that's pretty crappy, isn't it? So if you do build around factories, then you're not going to go anywhere, and so it's those tips that you have to really take care of in the game, and some things you only find out by trial and error. speeding up the footage, you can see we can break out of our own castle wall, and you can also lay a tunnel inside your own walls as well, deliberately, to create a town gate. Or, just like I've done, you can just plough a road straight through it. And from the other side, we can start to build up some things. The most important things are the attractions and the amenities. So let's keep a few trees around for the park, get some water features going on, the law and order so that we can tax everybody, and then just a few houses in that building with maybe an out-of-town school as well, which helps educate the people, and you don't need much more than that, I find, in the game. But with so much land at a premium, I really should be building outside of that area by now. See, we're almost in profit. You can see we've spent some cash on the new infrastructure, but look at that now, taxes from the industry, 300 denarii, that's more than the population. That should mean now that all those columns will be rising up. It means all our population will be rising in stature, our army will be rising in strength every time it defeats an army, and that will also be represented as well on the screen if our army is fierce, and that's terrific. So I really do like the SimCity aspect. I like the fact that you can corner off the enemy, trap them in, and attack them, but unfortunately I think the attacking the army bit is a bit redundant, and I never felt the need to install Cohort 2 and drag that out any further. You see, people can land in boats, but we cannot boats and attack anywhere else. This is our province, we have to defend it. We can also reinforce the walls which go all the way around our province, but that costs a fortune and I don't tend to do that. There's a lot to do, but it's a mixed bag, and I'd probably give this maybe a 7 out of 10. Taking a look at the scores, unsurprisingly the lowest score went to Amiga Joker, who gave this game 65%. Next highest is Amiga Gamer Magazine, who awarded this 68%. The usually lowly tight marking rating, Lemon Amiga, gave this 72%, and definitely 72% is the average mark for this game. And it only gets better. See, Amiga gave this 79%, Amiga Power awarded it 84%, Amiga Action gave this game 91%, and Amiga Format also awarded Caesar 91%, but the highest score by far went to Amiga User International, who awarded this a User International score of internationally 95%. And even though they give the graphics and everything else about 80% and the sound 70%, because there isn't much of it, and actually the jingles in this game can get pretty darn annoying, but they gave everything 1780 but awarded the game 95%. They said this is unmissable. They said it's as great as maybe Defender of the Crown and all those unmissable games. And with Cohort 2 it's a must-have on your Amiga. I disagree. I think Amiga International was a little bit optimistic. I think this definitely deserves a 7 out of 10, but maybe not much more than a 7.5. And the graphics are well done, you know, it's a polished game, and there's not going on. I love the city aspect, and it's not maybe quite as deep as traffic flow and things like that on SimCity, and you know, having to monitor deforestation and forest fires and dams and floods and tidal waves. But it's definitely not as deep as SimCity 2000 or Sim Life or any of them. So if you like basic builders like I do, then it's definitely worth checking this game out. But we're heading towards the end of the review now, and we're also getting towards closer to the end of the West Country, and Western Britain in this case has been squashed down beside the river, and you can see now that our peace is finally going up, and the prosperity is finally going up as well. And the average rating has to be over, I think, 50% it said, and it's 41% at the moment. So let's skip on in time, let's see what I did. I expanded south and destroyed a whole lot of stuff, and expanded north, as you can see, and I actually built some things over there on the other side of the river. And you can build bridges, and you're not limited to where you can build in the game. You don't have to connect everything by a road. You can build in the middle of nowhere if you really want to do that. So this is the end of Britannia. I've managed got 10,000 denarii in the bank, and that's for my retirement, and that's why I don't want to wait 25 years before accepting a promotion, because, well, I'm going to be 75 before I've done that. You can see finally our economy is built up. I've put my tax rate down to keep the people happier, and the businesses are giving me 600 denarii. You can see prosperity is now 61%, so all we need to do is to keep the peace up, and that means that sooner or later we'll be promoted, we'll get recognition from the Emperor. I think the aim of the game is to become the Emperor of the Roman Empire, which probably maybe 300 AD before you get there. And having become Emperor, you're supposed to have as much money in the bank as possible. Your good planning and brave decisions have been noticed. Rome has ordered that you be promoted to the rank of Legate in the province of Corsica. Take the promotion or ignore it for 10 years or 25 years. Well, I'm going to take that promotion. Corsica is number 4. You can see it's a tiny island, and this is perhaps one of the easiest of the lands in the game. You can see it's generating that land because every one of them is unique, but the island of Corsica will always remain the same. Let's have a look at the external view, and you can see we're on an island, and there's maybe 3 or 4 different settlements around the island as usual, so getting the 100% is going to be a doddle on this one. And what I actually did was build a wall all the way around the island so that the barbarians couldn't land in their ships, and I completed the game the easy way, just like that. So thank you for viewing another play guide and review. Thank you.